I'm Violet. I'm from Shelby, Ohio. I'm 11 days shy from 4 years. Today I am a mother, a wife, I am a sponsor, and I'm blessed.
Violet, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come join us here at Sandusky Artisans in Sandusky, Ohio in Erie County. We are really grateful that you could come out today.
Thanks. I was really shocked that I got asked.
Well, we're blessed to have you. Thank you. So let's start at the beginning. Can you share a little bit about your childhood?
Oldest of 3 girls. I'm one of 45 grandchildren. Neither one of my parents were addicts. And that does not include my aunts and uncles, unfortunately. That, they did their own thing. My parents were kind of the outcasts of that side of things. Mom and Dad kind of kept us protected from all that craziness.
Violet, will you share a story that really highlights your use?
I think that my use was one of those that wasn't typical because I wasn't the typical party girl. Being gay and using, I always joked around it. There was never such thing as a straight person when you were out using, because I watched people do ungodly things for dope, and it's hard to stay very protected when you're out using, as much as you try. And at one point, I ended up pregnant with my son, which, one, I never thought I'd have kids. My son's mixed. He's now 22 years old. He has Asperger's, which I fought that diagnosis. I was like, oh, he just has some quirks. But I think I did a pretty good job. He came up in the program. He gets upset. He says the Serenity Prayer. He, went through that stage where telling Mom, oh, I think you need a meeting. I had some really good role models in the program to help me through some hard times, because kids don't come with a manual on how to raise them. And I had lost custody of him after I had him, because even though I had quit during my pregnancy, I picked back up after he was about 4, because I didn't have any recovery before then. I didn't know what recovery was. I had just quit using, and I had started using when he was about 4, and I lost custody of him. I was a truck driver, and I knew that I could not drive truck and use, so I quit driving truck, and I ended up getting back surgery, and my doctor said, it's not good to drive truck and have a child, and your back's just going to get messed up even worse. And so I found other work, and then my addiction came back, and I decided that I had to work because I had to, pay child support, because, my dad decided that, well, I'll hit you where it's going to hurt, and that's the pocket. Women do pay child support, not just men.
Yes.
And I had a very good paying job, and unfortunately, just like everyone else, addiction takes its toll, and I lost that job.
You had mentioned before you had experienced some trauma, and that you're a member of the LGBTQ, and you mentioned that you have a son. Can you talk a little bit about how that transpired?
Yeah, that turned out to be a really crazy situation. I was giving someone a ride to go and get dope, and I was alone, and we ended up somewhere I should never have been. And when I told my partner that I was with at the time that he had raped me, they didn't believe me. They just thought that I had went to go get dope. And just went and used. So it turned out to be a horrible situation, and I just continued to use for, I don't know, a few weeks, until I had a more or less a nervous breakdown and ended up in the emergency room, and I couldn't understand why there was a police officer at the door, and they asked me, "Did you know you were pregnant?" And I said, "No." "Are you sure?" And I ended up going to a psych ward, and needless to say, I didn't go to jail because I didn't know I was pregnant, and luckily I was only 3.5 weeks. Needless to say, that ex and I never got back together. And I was able to quit using. But it was, a hard decision. I mean, I did not know the person. I, never thought about what I would do in that situation. I had to pray on it. I don't fault anyone that has to make that decision, because it's a horrible decision to have to make. The medical staff did ask me if I wanted to make that decision, if abortion was an option for me, if that's what I wanted. And for me, I didn't feel it was an option for me. Partly, I had a lot of friends growing up that had to make that decision. And with everything I had been through emotionally, I thought I'd regret it more than keeping him. Now, granted, you don't know if it's a him or a her at the time, but it was in God's hands. I prayed, and it was going to be what it was going to be, and it turned out the way it was supposed to, and my son came out healthy.
What kind of support helped you the most in your early recovery?
It was mostly the people. The women in the program really surrounded me, but not just the women. It was pretty much everyone. It was being made to feel a part of. It was that, that feeling of, just because I would show up right at the, as the meeting was starting, and jet as soon as it was over, eventually that kind of subsided, and there's a therapeutic value in hugs. I mean, there just is. And they taught me that, you treat people how you want to be treated. And I learned to carry that over into my family too. I can hug a perfect stranger, but I can't hug my siblings or my family. It didn't make any sense to me. So, I joke around that I'm the mean aunt in my family, and but my nieces all hug me, and we all say I love you. But that's part of what recovery has taught me, because we recreate ourselves into whoever we want to be, who we were truly meant to be. But it's only through recovery that we find it.
The opposite of addiction is connection.
Correct.
So what do you do today to maintain your mental, physical, and spiritual health?
That's a good one, because and a lot of people have a stigma with this, and I've been to all kinds of recovery meetings, and I love when people say, well, we don't talk about mental health here. It's an outside issue. Nothing is an outside issue if it affects your recovery, because if my mental health isn't in check, my recovery is in total jeopardy because my addiction's in my head. My disease is in my head. That's where it attacks me the most. It doesn't attack me physically. It attacks what I'm thinking. So if my thinking's off, then my recovery is a shit show. So I always laugh when people say nothing is an outside issue. So mental health is absolutely one of the most important things that we tell people. If I'm a diabetic, I have to take my insulin. If you have psychological issues, you have to take your medication. Because if you don't, we know what's going to happen. It's a vicious cycle. And I don't know about you, I don't like going back and forth, and it just isn't worth it.
How has recovery helped you to heal relationships that were damaged?
Learning how to let people be where they're at. I tend to tell people I'm not for everyone. I tend to be a little more selective when I sponsor, partly because I can be a little brash. And it gets hard, because we get attached to people, and I know how hard it is for me watching people go in and out, and all the funerals we've had to go to. It's heart-wrenching. But it also made me realize what it was like when I went back out, and what effect that had to have had on people that were close to me. So it's made it even more prominent in the back of my mind to stay here. And being of service is key. Staying in the middle of the boat. We stay active.
So what have you learned from your addiction and recovery?
What have I learned? I don't know anything. I remain very teachable. I have a lot of humility. Learning how to... Becoming disabled after getting clean, it was like mourning a loss of self. Your whole identity just changes, and having to ask for help for just about everything was horrible. Learning how to walk again. There's some people that go through what I went through that are still using walkers. And I told myself that I was walking out of there. That was my thing. I'm walking out of here. And I did walk out of there, and we went from a walker to a cane, but I had to ask for help. I just had a knee replacement, and it was the hardest. You ever have a knee replacement? The hardest thing is getting off the toilet. I'm warning you now.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. And recovery's taught me that. Yeah, is the phone 100,000 pounds when you think you need help? I'm still horrible about calling and saying things are off. But people that know me well can usually tell that something's off. But I've gotten better about it.
Describe a feeling that you've received in your recovery that was not there in your use.
I think the feeling of gratitude, just that ultimate. You ever, when you sit and listen to children laugh, that giggle, it's that humbling, I call them mommy moments. It's that unconditional love moment that you get when you hear a child giggle and laugh when they're playing. I get that a lot in recovery. Because all of us are big kids inside, we joke around about, a lot of us stopped growing when we started using. So you get guys in here that are 10, 11 years old that are just now like starting to grow up. And so I don't know, I'm just, maybe because I'm so playful at times, I like to laugh and have a good time, and we have fun in recovery.
Yes, we do.
I mean, we go places, we do things, and if you haven't belly laughed today, you need to. You laugh until your cheeks hurt. Those are the things that make recovery fun.
What dreams do you have for your future?
You know, there's a line about, if you made a list of all the things you'd get in from recovery, you'd be cutting yourself short. I'm at that point right now. I have these like little bucket list things that we're doing, and we have an idea. We want to go to Italy. My wife and I want to go to Italy. That's one of the things on our bucket list. We want to save up and go to Italy. But World is next year. We're definitely going to World. I've been to World twice already. It's a feeling you'll never forget if you've never been to World.
Violet, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come join us here at Sandusky Artisans in Sandusky, Ohio, in Erie County. We are really grateful that you could come out today.